Thank you very much, Christy, and it's lovely to be with you today. Welcome to our webinar on teaching game design. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at different methods of teaching GameMaker at different stages as students progress through their education. One of the important things that we'll be getting to as well is also looking at the type of COVID support that we're currently providing, as obviously a lot of young people are learning at home at the moment. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how we're able to support that. So to the agenda. We're going to do a brief to GameMaker. I'll give you a quick run through as to what it does. We're going to look at educators' experience of teaching game design. We did some research. We did some research a couple of years ago, and we also did some in November. So I'm going to touch on both of those two things. And then we're going to look at teaching game design, have an introduction and look at some of the approaches that teachers are using to teach game design generally. And then we'll look at age 12 to 14, we'll look at 15 to 16, and then we'll look at how game design is taught for older students at college or university. We'll then come into looking at how licensing works. We'll then hit the COVID learning support, and finish off with data privacy and licensing, and then the obligatory Q&A. We'll do a Q&A at the end. So starting off with GameMaker Studio 2, it's first developed in 1999. So we are over 20 years we've been going now with GameMaker. And it was developed actually in the Netherlands as an education tool. It's really easy to learn, and it's a 2D game making tool system. So that takes a lot of the complexity away from 3D. What we have is we have two ways in which you can use GameMaker. One is a drag and drop system, which is ideal for learning the fundamentals of code before you actually then move into full coding. And then you can move into full coding with GameMaker language, which is a C-based custom language that we use. It includes a number of tools that you can use to make games. So as I've got listed here, there's an image editor, there's a sprite editor, which are the little characters that you have. There's an object editor and the room editor as well. And we did a big update back in August last year, where we launched our new sequences tool, which is an animation tool. So you can get things moving in GameMaker really easily now. We've got free educator resources, so these are to help you teach young people how to make games using GameMaker. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail as well. And we have a really large, supportive and active community. And when you receive these slides, if you click on the next link, you'll go through to our showcase. So we have a lot of really big games have been made with GameMaker. The iPad Game of the Year for 2019 is made with GameMaker. Yeah, there's a lot of games on console and on mobile and on PC, etc. And we sign up over 1,000 new users every day. And most of them are young people just wanting to start their journey and learn how to make games themselves. So this is actually from the November survey that we did. We asked the question, how effective are game design lessons at teaching the following? And what you can see here is where the teachers who teach using GameMaker responded by saying somewhat effective or very effective. So we got some really good results here. Learning engagement is key. Individual confidence, planning, programming, as you'd imagine, obviously that kids are learning how to program. but there's a lot of really interesting ones, like improving the student-teacher bond and class behaviour as well. So I think because GameMaker is really hands-on, what you tend to find is that some children who are less engaged with maybe the technical side of what's being taught suddenly re-engage when they get the opportunity to go and make a game. What age do we teach game, or is GameMaker taught to? This is a fairly common question that we were asked. So what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at age 12 to 14 as one group, and age 15 and 16 as another, and then age 17 plus. But you can see that things start to pick up really at age 11, and then kick on again at age 14 when young people are being taught at school. So here's broadly how teachers approach the teaching of GameMaker from the survey. As you can see, the teaching of GameMaker is very hands-on. It suits kinesthetic learners. So this is why those students who maybe struggle in other areas suddenly re-engage with GameMaker. I was recently talking to one of our teachers who provides alternative provision for children who have behavioural difficulties and can't be accommodated in mainstream education. And he was saying that the Space Bubbles video tutorials seem to be of an ideal level for his students in particular. There are three approaches that I'm going to cover in this presentation. The first is the blue one, making a game step by step using video. This is an approach that solely relies on video tutorials where users build and extend games from no knowledge using drag and drop, and then progress into making games using GML coding. This is more appropriate in home learning situations, certainly where we've got children following step by step. And it's often used in out-of-school camps or clubs where there's no formal framework needed to learn code. The students are learning the skills in a more hands-on way, so educators may need to provide some structure to what they've learned after using the educated classroom materials. In orange, we're looking at making a game step by step with the teacher leading. So this is really the educator materials that we're going to look at shortly, where the teacher's able to fulfill a curriculum and start to provide the information about how to teach code. And in green, where we start looking at age 15 to 16, this is where a project is set with objectives for students to interpret. So this is where students are really being tested on their creativity and their ability to apply what they've learned previously. Looking at evaluation, testing and quizzes, observation is obviously really important, and individual assignments. So we have an ongoing assignment with the educating materials that we're going to test on. In the survey, we asked how teaching game design actually aids the education process at the school. We got some really interesting feedback. The kids are happier in class. There aren't behavior problems like there are in other classes. Games require creatives and tech teams to work together with a common goal to solve. While they build games, they also build friendships, learn to overcome hardships, and create something meaningful. My students very much enjoy the game design units that I teach. Personally, I think that game design is effective at improving problem solving, attention to detail, and teamwork. The students have learned to solve complex or abstract problems by themselves. The content provides a sufficient challenge and helps develop persistence and attention to detail. It has certainly enabled some students who are otherwise disengaged from the curriculum to re-engage. And we asked what aspects of learning game design do students enjoy the most. Definitely the end where they finally tried their own game, even if it was the most simple game in the world. Learning to overcome challenges and have a working program. The students love to show their parents what they have made by themselves. They're very proud if they get ideas done and improve their skills. The feeling of accomplishment when completing a game and watching others play the games they built. Just being able to create an original game, then watching their peers play the game is such a high for these kids. To be able to say that I made that is a real ego boost. Creating games, making rapid progress in a short space of time. Thinking up new games, brainstorming is normally a pain to get students to do, but not when it involves game design. And seeing their ideas take shape. So we're now looking at the way to teach at age 12 to 14. This is the Space Bubbles teaching resources. So what we provide here is 1-hour lessons with PowerPoint presentations, and each of those lessons is broken down really into 2 halves. So the first half is teaching the fundamentals of coding, and the second half is the students following the video tutorials that we provide. There's 3 homework sheets, and none of those actually require use of GameMaker or actually access to a computer or internet to be able to complete. There's also 6 written tutorial worksheets which come along. They accompany the videos, but it's probably better to have the students using the videos if that's possible, but they can also make the game using the tutorial worksheets. And then once they've made the base game, they can then move on to 15 extension and challenge tasks, which they can research and use those and follow those to make the game even better. There's a built-in assessment system which includes self-assessment, peer assessment, and a teacher review. We include a teacher's guide, and at each stage, so with each video tutorial, at each stage, each of those 6 stages, there's a GameMaker project as well. So if anyone gets stuck at any point, they can just go and move on to the next stage if they're having difficulty with a particular area. There's a link there which will take you through to this. You can just download this straight away from our blog, and these links will all work on the slides that Christy will be sending out. Actually, probably the best thing I can do now is actually show you the game. That's maybe quite a good thing to do. I'll just bring it up here. So this is Space Bubbles, and I'm going to have a go now, and I'm not very good, so bear with me. So you're trying to pop bubbles with your gamma rays, and there's rocks coming for you as well, and there's power-ups, and you can see the very first tutorial is actually just getting that background of stars moving. Oh, I've been got already. And then you move on. So you can see that some of these and these are more the more advanced tutorials. Some of them have multiple lives. You can see I've just accelerated there. There's some particles that we include, and we have lives at the top, and we're heading towards a warp gate, which is 2,200 and something miles away, and there's scoring as well, which is all made up in this game. So it's a real complete game that the kids will love to show their friends and play around with once they get it going. And you can pop bubbles and split rocks. So what more could you ask for? So I'll just finish there. In terms of the curriculum topics that are covered, there's as I mentioned, the key concepts and principles of programming, specifically looking at sequencing, selection statements, and iteration. There's modeling real-world problems and physical systems. And I said there's teacher review, self-review, and peer review assessment system built in as well. Well, we also have, because sometimes it can be quite tricky for teachers at the moment with some students having to be working or learning from home. You sometimes just need the students to be able to get on and do things in their own time. So we have a number of tutorials which they can make with drag and drop, and then actually make them again with GML when they reach a point when they're able to start coding. And so this one is making the first game that we enable kids to make, and this is Space Rock. So this is a simplified version of Space Bubbles, really. And then we have Space Mods, which enables you to do things like power-ups, enemy ships, cameras, parallax, which is a background layered background scroll. And visual effects, where you can do things like screen shake when you get hit, and or when you explode a rock, and visual effects as well. We had a really nice comment on our YouTube from users who'd followed these. So we had this guy saying, going through the series, this is the video where I had enough confidence to try my own things. This is the video where I've learned enough from this series to try customizing the game. So once you've made it through making your first game and you start to make it through this, then you can start to layer on top of this creativity. And there's a link here that will take you through to the Space Rocks game, which is free to download and use. We've got Breakthrough, which is balls breaking bricks and bouncing off platforms, and this is again another beginner level tutorial, which is ideal for young people to make. Very simple to make. Again, aged 12 to 14. So this is something that students can move on to. Then, as we start moving to age 15 to 16, what we see is school curriculums at that age start to focus more on the creative application of coding. So we see project-based tutorials where you can set a theme and see how your students interpret it based on a marking scheme, which might include things like interpretation of theme, complexity or functionality use, playability, coding practice, and creativity. So what we have to support this is a lot of resources that students, once they've been set a theme, can then go and tap in and use and make the most of, either working together, obviously in a classroom environment, but these are things that they can do on their own to be able to make the most of making their game. So I'll just go back to that slide, because I didn't actually cover some of the main points in there. So particularly the one at the bottom was, we've got Global Game Jam, which is probably the largest game jam in the world, and they have a load of resources here. Kenny, the two up from that one, has a lot of free game assets, which are mainly art assets, and there's audio and there's other things here that you can look into and use to make whatever type of game that you want. We have our own sort of central hub for learning. And this is our Learn page, which we creatively called yoyogames.com/learn. And when you go there, what we have is we have our own tutorials, and we also have tutorials from some of our community members. So it's a great place just to go in and learn how to make things. And you can dip in and out of some of these tutorials, and some of them cover specific types of approaches within a game. So not all, some of them are complete games, and some of them you have to make certain parts of a game. So you can learn and implement those. We also have a blog, and we provide a number of detailed written tutorials on how to do various things within this. And we also have, let's move on to the next slide, we also have some of our developers providing blog tutorials as well. You can also find a lot on YouTube. If you go in, there's just I just did a query here on GameMaker space tutorials. So you'll find a lot of space tutorials, a lot of tutorials really on any subject that you may like to find. And so those are great assets for making games. What we have here is our GameMaker manual. So there's complete instructions for all of the functionality within GameMaker included within the manual. Or if there's something that you want to do but you can't quite figure out how to do it, like completing a high score or something, you can just go and look that up in the manual, and there'll be a lot of detail around how to actually do things. We also have a number of written tutorials for all of the various tools that we have. So there's the image editor, the object editor, room editor, sprite editors, tile sets, workspaces, and the debugger. These are all actually within GameMaker itself. So when you go into GameMaker, you'll see a link through to the tutorials, and these can all be downloaded there. At age 15 to 16, we have another tutorial that we provide, and this is a platformer tutorial. So this is made by one of our community members, Sean Spalding, and what we have here is 2 videos, each about half an hour long, and it will show you the basics of making a platformer game. And then what you can do is move on and connect into Sean's complete platformer tutorials, which are 27 videos long. So that's a much more detailed, starting to get quite advanced into making a platformer. So the starting point is sort of beginner stroke intermediate, and then you sort of move into intermediate, and then as you progress, you become much more advanced as you're working your way through that. So that's probably one for students who have a real interest in it. Finally, we've got some new education materials, which I'm hoping these are going to be released towards the end of this month, actually. So this is a bit of a sneak preview. What we're hoping to achieve from this is at college and university, we see GameMaker being taught as really a sort of step into more advanced programming, and also we see it being used as a route in for artists and designers. So what we've created here is a role-playing game created by OCAD University lecturer and game designer Ben Rivers, and he teaches at the Faculty of Design at OCAD in Ontario. And what he does with this is it's a lot of detail in covering some of the more advanced elements of game design, and it's a great stepping stone for artists and designers to just go and quickly pick up the how to make a game and then start to apply their own art to this. So what we can see here is Ben's art that he's done. And in the next slide, we can see how this is being made within the GameMaker software environment. So a quick shot of that. And an example of the tools that are being used. So this is the animation tool, which we call sequences, which is used to make that game. For older students, they can also join our community. We have a forum, so it's a really responsive community. People, you ask a question and you'll get a response back pretty quickly. Very supportive, and they'll help to over any particular elements that you may be struggling with or whatever. So this is a really useful tool, particularly at college and university level. You need to be age 16 or over to be able to join the GMC. So on to classroom licensing options. There's 3 types of license that we provide. There's the educator license, which provides desktop export. All of our licenses, GameMaker in general, work on PC and or Windows and Mac. One of the questions I'm asked quite a lot, which so far I've not been able to provide a positive response to, unfortunately, that is whether or not GameMaker works on Chromebook. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't work on Chromebook, but it's something that we're desperately looking to try to remedy. So we'll obviously let you all know if that's something that's important to you when that comes along. But it's something that we're hoping to get done very soon. So looking at these licenses, what we have is Educator, and that exports to desktop. We have Educator Plus, which exports to desktop, and also HTML5 for sharing games. And we have Achiever, which tends to be used probably more at college and university, where you can also make mobile games and universal Windows platform games, which can actually be run on an Xbox One. And also we've got PlayStation licensing on there as well, which is part of the university licensing that Sony run. One of the questions we asked recently in our survey was how badly affected were you by COVID, and how is it affecting the way that you're teaching at the moment? So at that time, and that was really just before things, certainly for us, I'm based in the UK, things got really bad for us since Christmas. And this was before then, but even then, we could see that 5% of teachers only 5% of teachers were unaffected. And then what you can see is, for a big lot, lessons are entirely remotely taught for most teachers, and for a lot of teachers, 50% or more of lessons are taught remotely. And we're seeing reduced class sizes, fewer lessons, and frequent disruption as well. So one of the things that we've done, really, right since last March, back to last March, when various communities started going into lockdown. At that time, we could see that was something that was affecting everyone, and so we provided 5 concurrent uses of GameMaker for every single seat. So we sell GameMaker on the basis of concurrent use seats. But we were able to provide, so for every seat license that you had, you could have 5 students using each seat simultaneously, which enabled them to schools to move from having, say, 30 seats in a classroom or in a computer lab to actually having 150 students using those seats at any one moment in time. So it provided a lot more flexibility for schools to be able to teach. And that we did that through to the end of last year, as in the end of the school year, and then as you went through into the summer holidays, things started to get a little bit better, and so we were hearing around September time that a lot of schools is normal, and so we provided support for schools that needed it at that time. So we said, if you need any help, just speak to us and we'll provide you with additional help. And then it became quite clear back in November last year, as we were running this survey, that all schools were now starting to become affected again. So we switched back, and so the situation at the moment is that for every purchased license, you can have 5 students using GameMaker simultaneously again, and we have that situation running until the 30th of June this year. And obviously we'll keep an eye on things, but all the way through we've tried to respond and ensure that that there's not a problem where customers need extra licenses to be able to teach their students, because their students are no longer in classrooms. So yeah, we'll provide whatever support is needed to enable those customers to do that. Last point I just want to touch on is privacy, and so privacy is really important. The way that we work is that in each school, a teacher will create a GameMaker account, and then they'll purchase seats and concurrent use seats. And the way that those seats work is that we don't see the student at all. The student enters no data. The teacher allocates licenses, and those licenses consist of anonymous usernames and anonymous passwords. Quite often, what we see in schools is that a school will have a computer lab, and they'll just create one license per computer, and then multiple classes go in and use that. And that's all that's needed to do that. Or if they feel that they've got students using it in other locations, or they've got students having out of office or out of class clubs and things like that, then they'll maybe get some extra licenses for that as well. Yeah, as far as we're concerned, we don't see any data that relates to students whatsoever, and that's confirmed in our privacy policy, which there's a link to just there. So one last thing to mention actually is the special offer for all attendees, and that is that if you register for GameMaker, then every teacher that registers for GameMaker, we will provide a permanent desktop license for. So you just need to click on the link that Christy will send out, and when you click on that, then we'll register your account, and we'll then allocate you a free teacher license that will enable you to check out GameMaker. And finally, we're at the any questions. Let's just have a quick look to see what we've got here.
Yeah, Andrew, there was one in the chat about the Chromebooks, which you addressed. There's another one in the chat and another one in the Q&A window, if you have a chance to just take a look at those, or do you want me to read them to you?
I've got the one in the Q&A window, so I'll maybe start with that one.
Okay.
I've taught GameMaker, game design for 10 years. I use GameMaker 1, and the book I teach is Good Heart, Introduction to Video Game. Computers will still run on Windows 7, won't accept GameMaker Studio 2. perhaps I'll get new computers this year. What would you recommend? Right, well, that's interesting. If you've got old computers that won't use GameMaker Studio 2, obviously you need to have computers that use GameMaker Studio 2 to be able to run it. I suppose really what I would suggest is if you are getting GameMaker, getting new computers, or you want to test to see whether GameMaker Studio 2 works on computers that you have, then obviously get the teacher license. So register for an account, set up your teacher license, and then go and check to see whether GameMaker Studio 2 is running on those. One thing I would say is that GameMaker Studio 1 went end of life about certainly 2.5 years ago, I would say. It was back in August. So there's no support for that product any longer. So it's not something that we can help really. If you're still able to get it to work, then good luck. Next question: how important is being able to code if you're teaching game design at the high school level? I couldn't code my way out of a paper bag, but I'd like to teach a game design course if possible. So actually, the educator materials that we provide are based on drag and drop. So you don't need to be able to learn how to code. You won't be really looking at coding questions around how code looks, because it's based on a drag and drop approach, which is much easier to pick up. What I would suggest is click on the link through to the educator materials and take a look at the PowerPoints that we provide. And you should be able to be quite comfortable, even if you're not a coder yourself, to be able to do it. So I think that would be fine. I teach CAD and drafting. Can you give me some examples of how I might include game design into my curriculum? Well, actually, this new tutorial that we're looking to do may well be suitable for you. So this is, I'm presuming that this is being taught at a more advanced level, maybe at college or at university. So what you can do is, well, I suppose there's two approaches. You can use this to teach the students how to make a game, and then they can start to bring their own assets into that game and create their own assets and look at that side of things. Or you can look at maybe some of the more basic games and start to modify those games. So Space Rocks tutorial that I mentioned at the beginning, where you're starting immediately. You start. What we provide is just a little triangle, but then if you've got students who want to improve their creativity or even their accuracy, I suppose, as well, in terms of placement, etc., that becomes a big part of making games. Then they can use they can make a game with that very quickly and then start to modify it. Next question I've got here: does GameMaker work on Chromebooks from home or school? Is it web-based? No, unfortunately, it doesn't work on Chromebooks at the moment. We're not web-based. It needs to be downloaded. We're quite a small file, but it does need to be downloaded. What we're hoping to do very soon is to be able to have a version of GameMaker that can be downloaded for Chromebooks. So this is something that we're working on, and we really want to get this done really quickly. I'm teaching game design for the first time ever this spring. I have no experience, grades 9 to 11. Any suggestions? I'm a bit frightened. Yeah, that was interesting. I mentioned earlier on that I was talking to a teacher who teaches actually kids who have learning difficulties and behavioral difficulties, types of kids that can't be accommodated in mainstream school. And he's in exactly the same situation. And what he did was he just went into the materials that we used for Space Rocks, and he found this really easy to pick up as a teacher. So really, what you're doing with Space Rocks is you're going through the PowerPoint presentations, and you're being guided how to teach the PowerPoint presentations in the teacher handbook. And then once you're able to do that, once you've done that, then really the second half of the lesson is the students going through the video tutorials. So there's 6 half-hour video tutorials that the students are going to follow through to make the game. So I don't think there's anything to be frightened about. The basics that are covered in terms of the PowerPoints are fairly straightforward. And you don't need to be a specialist coder or a specialist programmer by any stretch of the imagination to be able to cover those. So I would just stick with the Space Rocks material, and good luck. At our school, each student has a laptop, so GameMaker will need to be uploaded to each machine. Correct. Yes, that's correct. You can go on to the yoyogames.com/education page. So if you go onto our education page, you'll actually see at the top there that you can just get straight into the download. So you can download the files for Mac or Windows, and then you can just copy those, install that onto each laptop. Do you offer any certifications upon completion of the class for students? This is really interesting, actually. In the UK, we found out for the first time that there's what we have is GCSEs, age 16 standard qualifications, and the first GCSE has been created with GameMaker. So this is one of the things I'm quite keen to look at for this year, is to actually start looking at getting other certifications that support GameMaker. So there is one currently in Open Badges, and we're trying to get that up and running. So we're most of the way there now, but it's not currently available. So watch this space. We'll see what we can do to get some accreditations out there. I can't see any more questions now, Christy. Is there anything else that you've?
There's actually 3 questions in the chat. The first one is.
Oh, okay.
Can you see the 3 of them?
I'll just go into the chat.
Yeah, they should. If you scroll down, the last 3, I tried to get them in order for you to read.
Oh yeah, I see. Right. Yeah, we'll get. So the first one was, will GameMaker 2 work on Chromebooks? Unfortunately, not yet, but we're hoping to resolve that. So that's right. Yeah, so some people do have some success in making 3D games. We are a 2D game tool, but there's ways in which you can that you can fake 3D, and we do see some POV games that have actually been made. We've got some articles in our blog that cover that. You probably need to go back a little way, maybe about a year ago. I think I last remember seeing the more recent ones on that. Also, go and have a look on YouTube. I know there's some content on making 3D games. There was a game. I'm just trying to escape it now. No, there's a game that we've got a blog on, which where they're talking about how they managed to fake 3D. But yes, it's something that can be played around with, but it starts to add a level of complexity. I mean, you can see actually from the, I'll just go back with the slides actually, you can see the game that we're making for our university students has an element of 3D in it. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, so you can see this layout has a 3D perspective to it. But it's essentially a 2D game. So that's what I mean when we're talking about faking 3D. What you start to get is you can adjust this and the movement so that it looks like it's 3D, but actually we are a 2D game tool. I'm teaching game design for the first time ever this spring. Oh, I think I covered that one in the. So I'm teaching game design for the first time ever this spring. I have no experience, grades 9 to 11, any suggestions? So I think we covered that one.
Yeah, Andrew, if you scroll down, there's a question at 12:41 p.m. that we haven't addressed, and I believe 12:42 p.m. They're way towards the bottom. That'll just save you some time.
Thanks. Well, what do you recommend for GameMaker to? I use a book that has step-by-step written instructions with photos. I need something like that for GameMaker too. Well, the educated materials, there's two ways in which you can do it. You can either follow the videos, or they actually have step-by-step written instructions as well with photos. So I would go and take a look at the Space Rocks material. That's a really good place to start. And due to IEPs, I must have written step-by-step. Oh, okay, right. Okay, I think that's all the questions, unless you can see anything else, Christy, that I've missed.
No, I think we've got them all. So let me just double check. So I think that's all the questions we have. I don't know if you have a next slide to go to.
I'll just go to the last slide for you. There.
Okay. So just thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you everyone for joining us. If you do have any questions, you can email info@studica.com and we'd be happy to help. And again, I will be sending out an email that will include this presentation, so you can get all those hyperlinks to the free educator offer, as well as all those informational sites and tools. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. You can respond to my email, or you can email info@studica.com. And just thank you all for joining us today, and have a great day.